Welcome, deep divers, to what I think is a truly pivotal moment in gaming history. You know, some video games, they don't just entertain us for a few hours. They fundamentally reshape entire genres, leave this indelible mark on culture, and just alter the whole landscape of interactive entertainment. Today, we're setting our sights on a title that went through a really surprising, often turbulent transformation. One that didn't just birth new legends, but really redefined what we thought was possible in, well, action and horror games.
Yeah, absolutely. We're embarking on a deep dive into Resident Evil 4. It's a title that, consistently pops up on those greatest of all time lists. But maybe more importantly, it's undeniably one of the most influential.
Right.
It's a game that took huge creative risks. It dared to shatter its own established formula. And in doing so, it really changed the trajectory of the entire industry.
And our mission today is basically to unpack that incredible journey. We're going to meticulously explore Resident Evil 4's complex, almost mythical development. I mean, a path littered with discarded prototypes, bold reinventions.
Yeah.
We'll dissect its groundbreaking gameplay innovations that didn't just tweak things, they set entirely new industry standards. We'll trace its massive, enduring legacy, look at how its DNA is, well, everywhere in modern blockbusters. And yes, we'll even delve into some of the surprising controversies it ran into along the way.
Yeah.
Reminds us that even masterpieces have their tricky moments, right?
For sure. Think of it like peeling back every fascinating layer of this survival horror titan that just refused to stay put.
Exactly.
And to do that, we've really meticulously navigated through a treasure trove of detailed production notes, in-depth gameplay breakdowns, comprehensive plot summaries, extensive critical reception analyses, and some revealing sales figures, too.
Right.
We're going to reveal the fascinating, often tumultuous, and ultimately triumphant story behind this revolutionary title. It's a story of courage, frustration, and, well, eventual groundbreaking success. So let's get started.
Let's do it. Let's really set the stage for this revolution. For anyone familiar with the Resident Evil series before RE4, you know its roots are deep in a very specific brand of traditional survival horror. We're talking fixed camera angles, right? That built that claustrophobic tension.
The tank controls.
Yes. Deliberate, almost tank-like character movement that emphasized vulnerability and that pervasive, slow burn sense of dread where, every single bullet counted. But Resident Evil 4 wasn't just an evolution. It was a deliberate, almost defiant break from that beloved, yet maybe increasingly stagnant formula.
Absolutely. The very first inklings of a sequel that would become Resident Evil 4 began way back in 1999, specifically for the PlayStation 2. The series creator, Shinji Mikami, he was the driving force behind this early iteration.
Right.
But a crucial moment of realization struck him after Resident Evil 0 came out. That was a prequel that still stuck pretty close to the established series conventions.
Yeah, very traditional.
Exactly. And he looked at it and felt it was, quote, more of the same. He actually said, this is just more of the same. This is why I wanted to change the system. He recognized the franchise was, well, on the verge of creative stagnation if it didn't evolve.
And you can imagine that wasn't an easy pill to swallow for the development team.
Yeah.
Mikami himself, the visionary creator, he designed and perfected that original beloved series formula, the very mechanics they were now being asked to just abandon. So when the game's direction shifted dramatically towards being more action-oriented, the staff were reportedly, well, depressed is the word used. They found it incredibly difficult to get motivated. It must have been a jarring experience.
Yeah.
Suddenly making something entirely different from the established identity they'd poured years into. Was it just like resistance to change or something deeper?
It's interesting because it became a classic innovator's dilemma, right? You've got this incredibly successful, established formula that people love, and the very person who pioneered it says, look, we need to break away from this. We need to reinvent. That takes immense courage from the director, especially when your own team is resistant and you're potentially alienating a loyal fan base. The depression likely stemmed from, well, the sheer uncertainty, the feeling of being forced out of their comfort zone, and perhaps a genuine creative love for the traditional Resident Evil identity they had helped build. Imagine being told everything you know is suddenly obsolete.
Wow. So this creative turmoil, it led to a truly winding path. The journey to the Resident Evil 4, we know, wasn't a straight line at all. It was a series of, pivotal detours and bold experiments. What many people don't realize is that the initial Resident Evil 4 concept, the one directed by Hideki Kamiya, was actually deemed too great a departure from survival horror by Mikami himself. This early version was actually the catalyst for an entirely different, now beloved franchise.
That's right. This early version of RE4, it was envisioned as a cool and stylish action game. It featured a protagonist named Tony, described as an invincible man with superhuman abilities explained by biotechnology. Kamiya himself felt that from a fixed camera angle, the Resident Evil staple Tony just didn't look heroic enough in battle. He craved a more dynamic perspective for his powerful protagonist.
And this too great a departure wasn't just shelved, was it? This cool, stylish action game, with its emphasis on over-the-top combat and a super-powered protagonist.
Yeah, it got spun off.
It spun off into Devil May Cry, launched in 2001, became a huge franchise in its own right, known for its stylish combat and, well, Dante. It's truly wild to think a game considered too much for Resident Evil 4 ended up giving us a whole new genre of character action games.
It's a fascinating origin story for sure. It really highlights Capcom's willingness to experiment, even when it meant spinning off a major project. And even in this early discarded stage, they had significant technical ambitions. They wanted to ditch the pre-rendered backgrounds that defined earlier Resi games.
Right, a big step.
Huge. Moving instead to a fully 3D environment with a dynamic camera system. To achieve this new visual fidelity and atmosphere, the developers even spent 11 days in the UK and Spain, meticulously photographing Gothic architecture for use in the game's textures. It showed their commitment to a new visual realism, even before the final game's direction was totally clear.
And then came the infamous Capcom 5 promise. November 2002, Resident Evil 4 is sensationally announced as one of 5 exclusive GameCube titles in this major collaboration with Nintendo.
Oh yeah, that was huge news.
It was a massive deal at the time, positioning Nintendo's console as the new, exciting home for Capcom's biggest and most innovative hits. That move sent shockwaves through the industry, hinting at a major shift in console loyalties.
And this raises an important question that would kind of haunt the game's release for years. How did a game initially planned for the PlayStation 2, one that had already gone through multiple iterations and creative pivots, suddenly become a GameCube exclusive? Only to later become a cross-platform hit across practically every system imaginable.
Yeah, good question.
It really hints at a complex release strategy, evolving commercial pressures and the difficult choices influencing creative decisions. That initial exclusivity deal was a massive gamble for both Capcom and Nintendo, and its eventual retraction sparked, significant debate in the gaming community about what exclusivity even really means.
Right, well, while the early ideas were tumultuous and the platform strategy was fraught, it was in the gameplay itself where Resident Evil 4 truly forged its path to legend. What were those pivotal design choices that really set it apart and would go on to redefine an entire genre?
Without a doubt, the most revolutionary element was the over-the-shoulder third-person camera system. This perspective, where the camera is placed directly behind Leon, zooming in for this intimate over-the-shoulder view when you aim, It was just a stark and impactful departure from the fixed camera angles of previous Resident Evil games. It allowed for unprecedented precision, a more immersive sense of connection to the character, and a clearer, more dynamic view of the action unfolding right in front of you.
Yeah, you could finally aim properly.
Exactly. Players could finally aim directly at specific body parts, which was largely impossible before. It transformed combat from, let's be honest, kind of a clunky affair, into this tactical dance.
And it wasn't just the camera, right? The laser sight, replacing the traditional crosshairs. That was a small change that had a huge, almost tactile impact that made you feel like you were genuinely aiming that weapon, giving precision, this tangible visual cue. Really added to the immersion.
What's truly fascinating here is how that precision, combined with the new camera, led to vastly expanded and more nuanced combat options. Instead of just firing generally, players could now strategically shoot enemies' feet to make them stumble.
Love doing that.
Or their arms to make them drop weapons, opening up new tactical opportunities. You could even shoot down incoming projectiles like axes or scythes midair, which was a revelation at the time. This wasn't just about simple aiming, it was about tactical targeting. It encouraged players to think about how they engaged enemies, not just if. This fundamentally shifted the rhythm of combat from that defensive resource management horror to a more aggressive strategic action horror. That blend was revolutionary and, frankly, exhilarating.
And the dynamism went beyond just shooting. They integrated these context-sensitive controls that made interactions feel seamless and cinematic. You could kick down a ladder to block enemies, jump out of a window for a quick escape, or execute a perfectly timed dodge. And the addition of QuickTime events, QTEs, during boss fights, where you had to press on-screen buttons to dodge an instant kill attack or perform some spectacular maneuver, that made gameplay feel incredibly cinematic and intense. It blurred the lines between action and cutscenes in a way that just felt fresh and exciting.
And this shift wasn't just about making the game more action-oriented in a generic way. It was about making the action more nuanced, more engaging, and viscerally impactful. Something that would resonate throughout the industry for years to come, influencing how countless future action games design their combat and player interactions. It was a complete reevaluation of what a third-person action experience could be.
You know, when we talk about Resident Evil 4's revolutionary impact, it's easy to forget how much wasn't in the final game. How many dead ends they hit. This wasn't some smooth, linear development.
Not at all.
We're talking about a lengthy, tumultuous journey where at least, 4 proposed versions of the game were completely discarded, some 40% complete. This wasn't just iteration. It was a saga of reinvention, almost like a series of false starts. It's a testament to a studio's willingness to utterly dismantle and rebuild, which is pretty rare in an industry often driven by safe bets.
It really is.
It suggests that sometimes true innovation demands repeated, costly failures.
That's a crucial point, and it underscores the immense creative struggle and, let's face it, financial commitment involved in arriving at the final, celebrated product. Let's dive into some of those disparted visions, starting with the FOG version. That was the first Resident Evil 4 prototype announced as a GameCube exclusive back in November 2002, part of that Capcom 5 reveal we mentioned.
So this was the one that was already 40% finished when they scrapped it, right? And it featured Leon S. Kennedy infiltrating Umbrella's dark, castle-like main headquarters somewhere in Europe. But here's the kicker. Despite Leon, it still featured traditional Resident Evil monsters such as zombies. So, still very much rooted in the old-school horror vein, even with a returning hero.
Correct. The plot, which was meticulously written by Noboru Sugemura's Scenario Company Flagship, involved Leon becoming infected with the progenitor virus, and as a result possessing some kind of hidden power in his left hand. Yeah. And interestingly, Ashley Graham, who's so central to the final game's dynamic, was completely absent from this version. Instead, there was a different girl who was never revealed, just this mysterious, unnamed companion. This version also planned to feature some first-person elements for certain sequences, adding another layer to its evolving identity. What's also fascinating is that elements of this progenitor virus storyline, specifically the idea of a protagonist grappling with an internal infection, well, they were later incorporated into Resident Evil 5. It shows that even discarded ideas can find new life, you know?
Yeah, nothing's truly wasted. So if that was the FOG version, let's talk about the most talked about scrapped version, the one that really captured the public's imagination, the Hookman version. It was sensationally showcased at E3 2003. Mikami himself famously assured everyone it would be scarier than ever before. What was so unique about this one?
Indeed. It was later titled Maburoshi no Biohazard 4, which translates to The Phantom Biohazard 4 on a Japanese pre-order bonus DVD, almost acknowledging its ethereal, legendary status. This version was set in a truly haunted building, where Leon contracted this bizarre supernatural disease and was fighting against paranormal enemies. We're talking animated suits of armor, living dolls that moved with this unsettling precision.
Creepy.
And of course, the iconic, terrifying, ghost-like man armed with a large hook. It had a truly otherworldly feel, with unsettling flashbacks and hallucinations marked by a bluish tint and a shaking camera that implied a descent into madness. It sounds incredibly unique compared to the final game, leaning heavily into psychological and supernatural horror, rather than the, bioweapon-focused scares of the finished product.
But what's truly fascinating is that even though this version was scrapped, apparently due to cost, it wasn't a total loss, right?
Yeah.
Crucially, a lot of gameplay mechanics did carry over from the Hookman version to the final game.
That's the key thing.
That revolutionary over-the-shoulder camera, the precise laser sight for aiming, and those cinematic quick-time events we talked about. So the kernel, the essential DNA of the final game's mechanics, was already emerging here.
Where?
Even amidst vastly different thematic approaches.
Precisely. Other proposed features, like dialogue choices that would have impacted the narrative, those were removed, streamlining the story. The writer of this version, Yasuhisa Kawamura, later expressed being ashamed that Mikami had to scrap it, lamenting the creative potential. He mentioned the initial inspiration came from a scene in the film Lost Souls, and that the idea was very romantic, but the cost of development was deemed too expensive.
Ah, the classic reason.
It's another poignant example of the immense financial pressure and creative challenges in large-scale game development, where even brilliant concepts can just be unsustainable. And for those keeping track of the series lore, the Spencer estate from this version, this massive Gothic mansion, it actually found its way into Resident Evil 5's Lost in Nightmares DLC, featuring Chris and Jill, proving, again, no idea is ever truly wasted in this franchise.
So after all these abandoned attempts, after years of creative pivots, and presumably millions invested in scrapped visions, Shinji Mikami himself took over directorial duties from Shibata. This was the final, decisive moment to reinvent the series entirely. It really feels like a last stand, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. His rationale was crystal clear and driven by creative urgency. The older system felt more of the same after Resident Evil 0. He described it as feeling like shackles holding us down, preventing true innovation and exciting gameplay. The team itself was also, apparently, tired of the same thing, with some members even moving on to other projects out of sheer boredom and lack of enthusiasm.
Wow.
Mikami took a direct, hands-on, almost you could say dictatorial approach. He explained his proposed changes directly to the team, a bold move for a director, and under immense time constraints, wrote an entirely new story in just 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. A story that, unlike previous installments, was not centered on the Umbrella Corporation, the villainous organization that had defined the series for so long. This was a radical break, signaling a new narrative direction entirely.
And the inspiration for that groundbreaking over-the-shoulder camera that would define a generation of games, it came from another Capcom game, Onimusha 3, Demon Siege. Apparently, Mikami enjoyed it, but felt it could have been significantly better with a different, more dynamic camera view. It's fascinating how one successful game can spark a revolutionary idea for another.
That's right. And to complement the new gameplay and story, a brand new type of enemy called Ganado was meticulously created. This was a deliberate, strategic move away from the traditional, slow, shambling undead creatures that populated previous Resi games.
Yeah, a big shift.
The Ganados represented a truly new type of threat, requiring different tactics from players. Furthermore, the character design for Leon Kennedy was significantly updated. Mikami intended for him to look tougher, but also cool, reflecting the game's new action focus and protagonist persona. This meticulous reinvention at every single level, from mechanics to narrative to enemy design, truly speaks to how determined Mikami and his team were to break the mold, no matter the cost or creative frustration.
So, we've talked about the dramatic shift in gameplay, but let's dive into the narrative itself and the ingenious enemies that truly made Resident Evil 4 stand out, pushing it beyond just a change in perspective. What's fascinating here is the complete departure from traditional zombies to the Los Ganados, or the cattle.
It was a brilliant move, both narratively and mechanically. These weren't your typical shambling undead. They were far more insidious and, frankly, disturbing. The Ganados are simple rural villagers who have been infested by Las Plagas, which literally translates to the plague. It's a mind-controlling, grotesque parasite that causes horrifying, mutated forms to violently sprout from their heads and bodies. Makes them visually unsettling and utterly unpredictable.
And their intelligence, or rather their collective coordinated behavior, was a huge step up from anything the series had offered before. They weren't just brain-dead fodder. They could dodge your shots, wield improvised weapons like axes, pitchforks, even crossbows.
Yeah, the coordination was cute.
And most terrifyingly, they would work together. They'd flank you, coordinate attacks, even bait you into traps. It created a far more dynamic, strategic, and challenging combat experience than just facing a horde of slow-moving zombies. You had to constantly be aware of your surroundings and adapt your tactics.
Indeed. And the peril of the plot unfolds around this menacing new threat. Leon S. Kennedy, now a seasoned U.S. government agent with a, let's say, shadowy past, is on this critical mission to rescue the U.S. president's daughter, Ashley Graham, from a mysterious and fanatical religious cult, Los Illuminados, deep within this remote, isolated rural village in Spain.
But things go sideways almost immediately, right?
Yeah.
Throws Leon into this spiral of desperation.
Oh, yes, the early deception. Within moments of arriving, Leon is captured by the intimidating village chief, Vitores Mendez, and injected with Las Plagas himself. He literally shares the same horrifying fate as his enemies.
Yeah, that ups the stakes considerably.
Totally. Gives Leon a ticking clock and a personal struggle to overcome. He's not just a rescuer, he's also a potential victim.
Right.
And that's where we meet a compelling cast of key allies and villains, each with their own complex motivations. There's Luis Serra, this charismatic former police officer and Los Illuminados researcher who becomes a reluctant yet crucial ally. He's searching for a cure and a plaga sample.
Okay.
Then you have Osmond Sadler, the cunning and insidious cult leader. Ramon Salazar, the bizarre, diminutive, and ancient castle owner with a penchant for dramatics.
He was something else.
Definitely memorable. Jack Krauser, Leon's former comrade, believed dead, who turns out to be this powerful double agent with a hidden agenda. And of course, Ada Wong, Leon's enigmatic past connection, whose loyalties are always shrouded in mystery and self-interest.
Sadler's plan is truly chilling. To use Ashley, once she's fully infected with the parasite, to infect her father, the U.S. president, and basically initiate his global conquest through a widespread outbreak. It's not just a simple rescue mission, it's a global biothreat. Turns a personal quest into a race against global domination.
And the narrative weaves through this thrilling tapestry of betrayals and shifting alliances. Luis Cesari's tragic death is a pivotal and heartbreaking moment. He courageously brings the pills to suppress the infection and a vital plaga sample, only for Sadler to brutally kill him and seize the sample.
Buddy.
Yeah. Krauser is dramatically revealed to be working for the series' overarching villain, Albert Wesker, aiming to steal the plaga sample for his own nefarious bioweapon experiments. And Ada Wong, while appearing to help Leon, also ultimately works for Wesker, taking the sample from Leon at gunpoint in the end.
Of course she does.
Leaving him to escape a literally exploding island with Ashley on a jet ski. The climax sees Leon and Ashley miraculously removing the plagas with a radiotherapeutic device, Leon confronting and killing Sadler with Ada's timely help, and Ada making her final elusive escape with the crucial sample. It's just non-stop, high-stakes ride that constantly keeps you on the edge of your seat.
But for me, even with all those incredible characters and plot twists, one of the most memorable and genuinely terrifying enemies in the entire game has to be the Regenerators. Just the name sends shivers down my spine.
Oh, the Regenerators are a masterclass in psychological enemy design. A true highlight of Resident Evil 4's horror elements. In-universe, they're horrifying bioorganic weapons, malformed and mutated by multiple plaga parasites infesting their bodies, making them grotesquely malformed and virtually indestructible through conventional means.
And the sound design.
The sound design is truly unique and immediately iconic. You hear their distinct, heavy, wheezing breaths before they're even seen, creating this chilling, audible warning that just ratchets up the tension, often in dark, confined spaces. When you encounter them, they slowly, relentlessly stalk you, continuously regenerating body parts even as you shoot them.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the gameplay mechanics surrounding them were absolutely brilliant, weren't they? They forced a shift in player strategy. You couldn't just shoot them to death.
Nope.
You needed that special infrared scope to spot and target the hidden plaga parasites within their bodies to truly defeat them. It forced you to be methodical, precise, and incredibly vulnerable under extreme pressure. It wasn't about speed, it was about precision under duress.
And that was Mikami's precise intention. He explicitly explained that elements like the Regenerators were crucial in helping Resident Evil 4 maintain its survival horror aspect, balancing a scary kind of gameplay and the challenge of overcoming that fear. The goal was to give players a profound sense of achievement when they finally managed to overcome these truly formidable and unsettling monsters. Made you feel like you genuinely outsmarted a terrifying threat rather than just outgunned it.
Yeah, it definitely felt earned. And what about the voices and faces behind all this fear and action? Voice acting is absolutely crucial to making characters believable and emotionally resonant, especially in a game where you spend so much time with them, navigating such a perilous journey.
Yeah, the English voice actors truly brought these characters to life. And it wasn't a quick process. They worked meticulously over 4 sessions, spread across 3 to 4 months. This allowed them to really delve into the emotional arc of the script, ensuring continuity and depth in their performances. And Capcom's choice to bring in Shinsaku Ohara as script translator and voiceover coordinator was crucial here. It meant the subtle nuances and intentions of the original Japanese script were carefully preserved and conveyed in English, avoiding that, often criticized awkwardness of early video game localizations.
Right.
Carolyn Lawrence, who voiced Ashley Graham, described her character as vulnerable, highlighting Leon's constant need to come to her rescue, but also her own growth throughout the ordeal. She also humorously described Leon's character as more brawn, perhaps, than brain, which kind of captures his straightforward, heroic nature.
And the critical praise for Paul Mercier's portrayal of Leon and the voice acting overall was immense, wasn't it? Critics noted that for once, the characters felt believable because Capcom hired competent actors. IGN's Matt Casamassina went into even further detail, praising not only the character design, but also the fight choreography and the meticulous 3D modeling in the cinematic sequences. He specifically complimented Paul Mercier as Leon, saying, quote, "For once, the characters are believable because Capcom has hired competent actors to supply their voices. Leon in particular is very well produced."
Yeah, that level of detail really made the characters resonate. The attention to detail truly extended to the cinematic sequences, where developers painstakingly ensured each character's facial expressions matched the tone of their voice actor, creating this seamless and immersive experience that was pretty groundbreaking for its time. This level of commitment to character believability, both audibly and visually, really cemented the emotional connection players had to Leon and Ashley's perilous journey, making their struggle feel authentic and impactful.
So, when Resident Evil 4 finally launched January 2005 for the GameCube after all that tumultuous development, it was an immediate phenomenon. It didn't just sell well, it exploded onto the scene, selling over 320,000 copies in North America in just 20 days, and 200,000 in Europe in its first month. That's a blockbuster right out of the gate. Validated Mikami's bold vision and Capcom's perseverance for sure.
It certainly was a resounding success, and Capcom quickly capitalized on the immense excitement with various collector's editions that really fueled fan enthusiasm. There was a special pre-order bonus that included the game, the beautiful prologue art book, and a commemorative t-shirt.
Nice.
GameStop offered another limited edition housed in this collectible tin box, bundled with an art book, a cell of Leon, and a soundtrack CD. Even Australia received an exclusive collector's edition with a bonus disc featuring rare interviews and creators' footage. Showed the global appeal and the extensive marketing push behind it.
But the story of its release is far from over. And this is where things get even more complex, maybe controversial. There was that crucial decision to port the game to the PlayStation 2, despite those initial, highly publicized exclusivity promises made to Nintendo.
Yeah, that caused a stir.
Capcom publicly cited increased profit, changing market conditions, and increased consumer satisfaction as key reasons. This was a massive moment for the industry, setting a precedent and demonstrating how commercial realities and the desire for wider reach could ultimately override platform exclusivity deals. Much to Nintendo's chagrin, I imagine.
Oh, definitely. It really sent a clear message about the evolving priorities in game publishing. But crucially, the PS2 version wasn't just a simple port, which might have angered fans even more. It included a substantial and highly anticipated addition, Separate Ways.
Right, Ada's story.
Exactly. A captivating side story focusing on Ada Wong's mysterious involvement, her secret objectives, and her direct connection to Albert Wesker. This new scenario was thoughtfully conceived by the PS2 porting team, and personally approved by Shinji Mikami himself. It provided significant new content that enhanced the overall lore and gave players a fresh perspective on the main narrative. The PS2 also saw its own collector's bundles, initially featuring a Leon figurine and later a second pressing that included an Ada figurine, plus a striking Steelbook Premium Edition, really cemented its status as a landmark release.
From there, Resident Evil 4 truly became a multi-platform sensation, didn't it? Reaching audiences on almost every available system, ensuring its legacy and sales continued to grow for years. It was a game that simply refused to be confined to one console.
Yeah, it went everywhere. The PC port, developed by Source Next and published by Ubisoft, arrived in 2007. It commendably included all the PS2 bonuses, like Separate Ways, and crucially added widescreen support.
But it had problems initially, right?
Oh yeah. It initially faced significant criticisms for a baffling lack of mouse support, almost unthinkable for a shooter on PC, as well as frustrating keyboard controls, low-quality FMV cutscenes, and kind of choppy lighting graphics that detracted from the experience.
Ouch.
Fortunately, a critical patch, version 1.10, was released that largely fixed these, well, egregious issues, allowing the inherent strength of the core game to finally shine through on the platform.
Thank goodness. Then came the groundbreaking Wii edition in 2007, which was universally praised for its updated controls.
That one was really cool.
It masterfully utilized the pointing and motion sensing abilities of the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, It replaced the traditional laser sight with this free-moving reticle that you aim directly on screen, providing this unprecedented level of precision and immersion. Motion gestures were cleverly integrated for actions like quick knife attacks or dodging. Plus, it packed in all the extra content from the PS2 and PC versions, making it kind of a definitive edition for many.
It even found its way to mobile. Resident Evil 4 Mobile Edition astonishingly launched in Japan back in 2008. Adapting such a complex, action-heavy console game to mobile phones meant significant changes, obviously, like dividing the story into more manageable sections, village, fortress, etc., and adding a more challenging mercenary mode for bite-sized action. It even made its way to more obscure platforms like the Zeebo and eventually iOS, receiving an iPad HD version with updated graphics. Truly showed its adaptability and enduring appeal across vastly different hardware.
And the re-releases just kept coming, didn't they? A real testament to its timeless quality. We saw HD remasters for PS3 and Xbox 360 in 2011, a PC Ultimate HD Edition in 2014, and then enhanced versions for PS4 and Xbox One in 2016. These brought the game to modern consoles with improved graphics, higher resolutions, and all the bonus content from previous versions, ensuring its continued accessibility and exposure to new generations.
And it even came to the Nintendo Switch in 2019, bringing it full circle back to a Nintendo console. But here's where it gets really interesting for me, and perhaps one of the most significant transformations of all: the virtual reality transformation. In October 2021, Capcom released a dedicated VR version of Resident Evil 4 for the Oculus Quest 2, developed by Armature Studio.
Okay, now that sounds intense.
It was. This wasn't just a port, it was a complete reimagining. Many elements of gameplay like combat, weapon handling, inventory management were meticulously redesigned from the ground up to accommodate the unique demands of VR. It provided a truly immersive and frankly terrifying first-person experience. Textures were redesigned with increased resolution, and environments felt more tangible than ever before.
But this raises an important question, though, doesn't it? About the changes made to update the game for a modern audience in the VR version. I heard about this. This included the removal of certain in-game animations, like the one triggered if players tried to look up Ashley's skirt, apparently, and also some dialogue and flirtatious banter between characters. This decision sparked considerable debate among fans and critics.
Yeah, it was divisive. While some applauded it as a necessary modernization, maybe to align with contemporary sensibilities or prevent potential discomfort in a first-person VR setting, others viewed it as an unnecessary alteration to the original artistic intent. They questioned the extent to which older content should be retroactively filtered for new releases. It's a fascinating example of how artistic integrity and cultural context can collide in game re-releases.
It really is a complex discussion, highlighting the evolving landscape of content adaptation.
Yeah.
Regardless of the platformer version, though, Resident Evil 4 has been an undeniable commercial juggernaut. It's a definitive cross-platform hit, selling what? 12.3 million units across all versions by December 2022, and that figure's still climbing.
Astounding numbers. It deservedly holds the record as the best-selling survival horror game in the 2012 Guinness World Records Gamers Edition and is the second best-selling Resident Evil game overall, a testament to its enduring quality and broad appeal.
And the merchandise. It's everywhere, from multiple official soundtracks to highly detailed action figures by companies like McFarlane Toys and Hot Toys, capturing every nuance of Leon and the terrifying creatures. And who could forget those iconic, maybe slightly unwieldy, chainsaw controllers?
Oh yeah, the chainsaw controllers. By Newbie Tech for both the GameCube and PlayStation 2. Classic. It truly became a global phenomenon that clearly resonated with players worldwide, spawning this massive cultural footprint.
So, after all that, what does this all mean when we look at the critical reception? Resident Evil 4 wasn't just well received, it garnered universal acclaim that, honestly, few games achieve. The GameCube and PlayStation 2 versions both scored an incredible 96 out of 100 on Metacritic. That ranked them as the top ranking on Metacritic's list of the best video games for 2005. This wasn't just a good game, it was hailed as a masterpiece.
Yeah, the critical consensus was overwhelmingly positive across the board, which is a rare feat for such a drastic genre reinvention. Reviewers universally praised its compelling story, its groundbreaking gameplay, impressive graphical fidelity for its time, the strong voice acting, and its memorable, often terrifying characters. It consistently led to the finished product being cited as one of the best video games ever made, period.
Right.
Even though someone like GameSpot's Greg Kazavin playfully noted some uncharacteristically goofy dialogue, he, along with others like Adam Pavlaka from Yahoo, Games and Kevin Vinord, also from GameSpot, praised the overall voice acting for creating detailed and engaging characters.
And IGN's Matt Casamassino, we mentioned him earlier, he went into even further detail, praising not just the innovative character design, but also the meticulous fight choreography and the stunning 3D modeling in the cinematics, which really pushed the boundaries of in-game storytelling. He specifically complimented Paul Mercier as Leon, saying, "For once, the characters are believable. Because Capcom has hired competent actors to supply their voices, Leon in particular is very well produced." That attention to detail made a huge difference.
Absolutely. And while the original PC port had that more mixed reception due to those initial issues we discussed, like no mouse support and choppy lighting, the strength of the core game was so undeniable that it still managed to receive generally positive reviews once those issues were patched.
Okay.
The Wii version, on the other hand, was widely praised for its intuitive new controls. The esteemed Japanese publication Famitsu gave it a near-perfect 38 out of 40, noting that even owners of the original would find something immensely enjoyable and fresh in the new control scheme.
The awards avalanche for Resident Evil 4 was absolutely staggering, wasn't it? A clear indication of its industry-wide impact and critical dominance. It was named Game of the Year by virtually every major publication and awards: Body Edge, Electronic Gaming Monthly, Game Trailers, Game Informer, Game Pro, Game Revolution. The list goes on.
And the specific accolades just kept rolling in, showcasing its comprehensive excellence across multiple facets of game design. It won Best Action Adventure Game, Best Graphics, Best Original Score for its atmospheric and tension-building music, and Most Improved Sequel, which really speaks volumes about its profound transformation from its predecessors.
Yeah, Most Improved is almost an understatement.
Right, and even the VR version continued the trend years later, winning VR Game of the Year awards, demonstrating its continued impact across new mediums and its timeless design.
What's truly fascinating here, beyond just awards and sales, is that Resident Evil 4's influence went far beyond just being a critically acclaimed game. It's consistently classified as one of the most influential games of the 2000s, particularly for fundamentally redefining the third-person shooter genre for an entire generation.
Its offset camera angles that do not obscure action, that intimate over-the-shoulder perspective, became an industry standard almost overnight. Think about it. Games like Gears of War, Dead Space, The Last of Us, Grand Theft Auto, Uncharted, Mass Effect, they all adopted this perspective, recognizing its superiority for player immersion and tactical combat.
It's everywhere now.
Exactly. Game Informer even went so far as to call it the most important third-person shooter ever, arguing it innovated two genres simultaneously. It fundamentally changed how players perceived their characters and interacted with their environments in a 3D space.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, its impact on the survival horror genre itself is complex and, hotly debated. Some argued it abandoned the survival horror genre by emphasizing reflexes and precision aiming, and introducing so many action elements, moving away from the slower, more vulnerable feel of earlier titles. They felt it leaned too heavily into action.
That's a valid point of contention among purists, for sure, and it certainly broadened the gameplay beyond traditional horror conventions. However, it also undeniably influenced other major horror series to evolve their combat systems, proving that horror could be dynamic and action-packed without sacrificing tension.
Like what?
Well, examples include Silent Hill, Homecoming, and the 2008 version of Alone in the Dark, which embraced more direct combat mechanics. This ultimately represented a broader industry trend towards integrating visceral action gameplay within traditionally slower-paced, atmospheric genres. It showed that Resident Evil 4 wasn't an anomaly, but a pioneer.
And the list of direct influences is just a who's who of modern gaming, demonstrating its immense blueprint status. Developers explicitly cited Resident Evil 4 as inspiration for some of the biggest titles of the last 2 decades.
For instance, Naughty Dog, the acclaimed studio behind The Last of Us, openly took cues from Resident Evil 4 when developing their own masterpiece, specifically for its masterful blend of tension, resource management, and visceral action.
You can totally see it.
Yeah. The designers of Dead Space, another iconic survival horror title, actually changed their original game concept entirely after RE4's release, clearly inspired by its groundbreaking success and new approach to third-person horror. Even BioShock, known for its atmospheric storytelling, drew significant influence from RE4's approach to dynamic environments, varied combat, creative tool usage, holistic design principles, integrated storytelling, inventory management, and even how its opening village section handled the sandbox nature of the combat, allowing for player creativity.
Wow, even BioShock. And games like the modern God of War series were influenced by RE4's combination of poised camera exploration and scavenging. according to director Cory Barlog. The director of Uncharted, Bruce Straley, famously called RE4's opening village sequence the best opening fight in a video game.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes about its immediate impact and memorable set pieces.
Absolutely. And its legacy continues even within its own franchise. The director of the critically acclaimed Resident Evil Village, released in 2021, explicitly stated it was designed with Resident Evil 4's essence in mind, demonstrating how its foundational design principles still guide the series decades later. This ongoing relevance is further cemented by its role as an early example of HD video game remasters, showing its continued commercial viability.
And, of course, the highly anticipated and critically lauded 2023 remake, released across multiple modern platforms, even the cutting-edge iPhone 15 Pro. That truly showcases its enduring relevance and immense demand. It's a testament to a game that simply refuses to fade into obscurity, constantly finding new life and new audiences.
And on a final curious note, just adding another layer to the complexities of large-scale game development, there was even a legal proceeding back in June 2021. Photographer and author Judy Juracek launched a lawsuit against Capcom. She alleged the unauthorized use of images from her copyrighted book, Surfaces, visual research for artists, architects, and designers for game textures, specifically citing examples in Resident Evil 4 and Devil May Cry.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. This dispute was ultimately settled amicably out of court in February 2022, offers a rare glimpse into some of the lesser-known complexities and legal considerations that can arise during the creation of such massive, intricately detailed virtual worlds.
So there you have it. Resident Evil 4 wasn't just a game, it was a watershed moment, a true pivot point in gaming history. It stands as this testament to pushing creative boundaries and fearlessly reinventing beloved franchises, even at great cost and with significant internal resistance. From its complex, almost mythical development with multiple discarded prototypes to its groundbreaking innovations that set new standards for action and third-person shooters, it truly became a blueprint for countless games that followed, influencing mechanics, design, even narrative approaches across the industry. Its journey from a concept deemed too much to a genre-defining masterpiece is just remarkable.
Absolutely. And as you consider all of this, maybe think about this. In a world constantly seeking the next big thing in gaming innovation, what profound lessons does Resident Evil 4's development, marked by daring changes, costly discarded visions, multiple failures before that ultimate resounding success, what does it offer creators today about the courage to break from tradition? What truly revolutionary boundaries could be pushed if more developers embrace such radical reinvention, even at the risk of discarding entire costly prototypes, all for the sake of true innovation?